So welcome to a new video, and for this week I'm still pushing through with my artist block and my artist burnout. So I thought I would share for this week's video the strategies that have been working for me in order to beat the block and beat the burnout.
Some say to only get creative when the mood or muse strikes, when you're feeling truly inspired or in the zone. But often I'm not in flow. I simply don't feel like making art. I'm not in the mood to paint. Now I am full-time and have made art my job. I really needed some shifts in my mindset and changes to routines in place. Things that would support me physically, mentally, emotionally and spiritually. Over the past few months, I've tried different ways to get over these art blocks. Some of them have worked and some haven't. So I'm going to share the things that have really helped me find my way back to creativity when resistance and fear gets in the way. And I know we're all different, so maybe they won't all work for you, but I hope you will gain some insight into what will truly work for you too. Feel free to add to the comments your tips and thoughts and share with our lovely community of creative souls. And if you enjoy the video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're not already. I really appreciate it.
So let me talk to you about then the things I've been doing in order to beat the burnout and beat the artist block. So the first tip I'm going to give is all about rest and relaxation and making sure you get enough time out and time off when you really need it. And it's recognizing when you need to push yourself a little bit and push yourself to get started, push yourself to get going, push yourself to just do it a little bit longer. And recognizing as well the times when you really, really do need to rest. And what I've been doing, which I did yesterday, is I went home at 12 o'clock, maybe just after. James and he packaged all the Patreon You've Got Mail post, and we went to the post office and he dropped those off. And then he took me home. And then when I got home, I had my dinner because I was really, really hungry. And then I closed the curtains in my bedroom, put on my fairy lights, and just got into bed. And even though it was a bright sunny day, it was too bright for me, it was too loud, everything was just too loud, and I just felt really overwhelmed. And so I basically hid away in my bedroom for the rest of the day, and James worked upstairs. And I will be honest, I felt absolutely terrible, dreadful. I think it's to do with the sleeplessness, and also I felt very bumped and bruised by life yesterday. It just all felt too much, like just sometimes it just does, doesn't it? And I wasn't sure how I was going to feel this morning, but I did make myself a little promise that I would come in for at least an hour or two and try and do a little something with my artwork. But it's turned out that I feel much better today, even though I didn't sleep very well last night, so I have no idea why I'm feeling better. But I know that if I hadn't given myself permission yesterday to just completely fall off the planet, if you like, and hide away in my bedroom in the dark, I wouldn't be okay today. So I'm really glad I did that. And I didn't feel guilty about doing it, and I just recognised it was really what I needed to do, and so I did it. I don't think there's a point in doing that if you're going to give yourself a hard time and make yourself feel guilty, because it's just going to defeat the object, isn't it? So make sure if you're going to do that, that you give yourself proper permission to just absolutely chill out, have a bath, get into your gym jams, get comfy with your book or with Netflix or whatever it is that you do just to chill out, or just lie there comfy and just enjoy that space, that mental space from all the busyness of life. So that's my first tip. So in no particular order of priorities, my second tip is to have multiple projects of your creativity going on at once. So as you can probably tell, I have got lots of projects going on, and that is how I tend to work. But I did notice I needed to burrow a little bit deeper into one of my projects, which is my flower power project, which has been going on since the Art Nouveau painting. So I think I started that in January, can't remember, but a long time ago. And I noticed I needed to simplify my subject matter and to really get myself into the project. And so that's why I started doing multiple of the canvas squares with one flower on, to really simplify and hone in on those expressive / realistic flowers with some abstracting elements in as well. And those are still all on the go as well. But a couple of weeks ago, if you've seen my video from a couple of weeks ago, I'll link it up somewhere up there, you might remember that I was having a real problem with those and my art was going wrong and I was feeling quite frustrated. So the following week I switched to watercolour. And again, I will say I am not a professional watercolourist by any means, but I absolutely love playing with watercolour, and I know a couple of the techniques that really work for me when I'm painting flowers and faces. So those are my go-to techniques, if you like, with watercolour, and I'm a little bit more comfortable with the fact it creates unexpected and abstract results, which I find really exciting. And then that gets my creative juices flowing, if you like, and I get into it. And I thought today I wanted to have a couple more watercolour projects on the go as well. And they've turned into a little bit mixed media because I have been using my crayons and my acrylic as well. But I began with watercolours and I'm still going to continue with watercolours. And having multiple things on the go is good for me for quite a few reasons. One being that I like to wait for layers to dry in between, so that's handy when I've got something else to work on. And the other thing is, if something is going wrong, or I don't like it, or it's not going the way I want it, I've always got a couple of other things on the go that I can be playing with. And that brings me to my third tip, which is to play. Really give yourself permission and allow yourself to really play, and say to yourself, whether it's your sketchbook or whether it's an expensive piece of watercolour paper, like I've been working on my watercolour block and it's expensive paper, I just gave myself permission again to play. And if you really, really can't play with your expensive items, I suggest you get your more budget items out and use one of your sketchbooks or journals that's more reasonably priced. And make sure that you feel comfortable to play. And in order to allow myself to be comfortable to play, I've not been creating or recording my artwork in order to put in a formal tutorial for the Patreon or a process video for the Patreon. So in order to make those kind of videos, I also need to build in this playtime. Is something I've recognised recently as well, which is a big reason why I've taken James on as the editor for the Patreon videos. And even when I'm making those types of videos, I do have a sort of breathing technique and dancing around and those kind of things that really help me relax into the process if I start to feel myself tightening up. So I've got all those strategies in place and that really works for me. But I still know I need my playtime as well, just for me. And then that's going to make me a better artist, which is going to make my process videos hopefully better as well. And it's not easy to play, so that brings me on to my next tip. So my next tip for helping to cure artist block is definitely to try and stay loose. Because if you're sat at your desk and you're working really tightly, you're going to feel tense and you're going to feel tight. So make sure you've got bigger brushes or that you stand up and do something. You can either stick something to the wall or use an easel. I use a table easel and I put it on my bench here. and then I can stand up and I can walk away and I can view my work from at a distance, and that helps me stay loose. I can also work with my brushes rather than working like this with them. I'm holding them more like this, and I can do looser strokes and things like that. And that's much easier when you can sort of use your whole arm to get back from your work rather than sat here with, tight. And other things that I do to stay loose are some breath work. We talked about last week, I think, where we breathe in, hold it, and then breathe out again. Those kind of techniques. Belly breathing, doing a little yoga stretch. Sometimes I lay on the floor and put my legs up the wall if I'm feeling really stressed. Legs up the wall pose. It's such a miracle pose that if you haven't heard of legs up the wall pose, go and look that up and have a go at that. Sometimes I lay on my bed and I put my legs straight up the wall, and sometimes I lay on my floor and put my legs up the wall. It's really good for all sorts of problems, health problems, very good for anxiety, very good for stress, very good for your heart and your circulation and all sorts of other things. I'm no expert and I'm no yogi, but I know that that pose really, really works. And if you've watched many of my videos before, you may have noticed I like to dance while I'm painting, and I like to dance and boogie around. Bad dancing is always welcome, and I've even put it on the YouTube a few times now.
We got a brand new day, good love is on the way, and if you take my hand, I'll walk with you to Georgia. Have you ever been in love? Dove in from high above, and if the answer's no, well then I'd like to get to know you.
It's really good for loosening up in the body and also lifting your spirits if you put a nice tune on that you really love, and you can boogie around. And even if you don't feel like dancing, it's just good to stand up and stretch and things like that. So definitely do that and take regular breaks as well. And one of the things I forget to do when I'm painting is have a drink and stay hydrated. So I've been really trying to work on that today. And so it's just one of the basics, obviously, but it's a really important one. If I forget to drink, that's when I'll start to get a bit of a headache, and then I don't want to concentrate on my artwork anymore. So it really does help keep me going. So the next tip I have for you is something I did briefly mention a minute ago, which is basically last night when I was feeling terrible, I made myself a little promise that I would come into the studio, even if it was just for an hour or two, and try and do a little something. And I think that when we've got creative block, I think it's really important to try and do a little bit every day. So I take my sketchbook home at the weekend in case I feel like doing a little bit of drawing. And then in the week, I try and do a little something every day, apart from Thursdays when I work from home. And because I had a new sketchbook art journal to start, I thought I would do a little page in that, no pressure, as a playground, and also have a little play on my posh Arches paper. So that's what I decided to do. And even if I'd just done half an hour on those things, 15 minutes on that one and 15 minutes on the other one, and I'd left it really light watercolour layers. So the first watercolour layers that I put down, and I'd left it at that and then gone home, I'd have been happy with myself because that was the promise I made to myself. And I have to admit, yesterday, I tried to do a little something, but I couldn't do it. So again, I didn't beat myself up about it. I tried. I couldn't bring myself to even start yesterday. And I knew I needed to go home and hibernate, so I did. And today I tried again to do a little something, no pressure, no judgment, and it worked out today. So something got done. So I'm really pleased with myself today. And there is a little bit of discipline in this one, isn't there? There's a little push to do it, a little push that might or might not work. And sometimes it doesn't work. But sometimes I think we do need that little push in that direction as being our inner parent rather than the inner child. The inner child is saying, I don't want to, I'm too scared, or I've got no energy, or I'm not in the mood. And the inner parent's going, you'll feel better if you just have a go. You might get into it. You might really enjoy it. You might get into the zone. The artist block isn't going to disappear if you're not going to do it. And that's what your inner parent is going to say, isn't it? So see how you feel. I'm not making a strict rule here. A lot of people don't like the discipline word. I'm okay with it. I think it means that I'm a disciple of my creativity, if you like. I'm dedicated and devoted to moving forward with my artwork. I'm passionate about it. It's my lifeline. It's my happy place. I need to express myself. But at the same time, I do recognise that I need a little push to get started on some of the days. So the next little tip I have for you is to find out your power time. And for me, that's in the morning. I'm a morning person, but I know some people are owls and they like to work late into the night. I can't do that. I get to a point where I'm just too tired and my brain doesn't want to concentrate anymore and it's had enough. And I can't work for long periods of time either, especially if I'm doing something like observational drawing and things like that. I get very tired very quickly. So I recognise that about myself. And I know for me, I'm better if I get to the studio earlier rather than later and jump straight in with my creativity. And that works for me. And I don't know what works for you, but I suggest you do a little bit of self-inquiry, if you like. Maybe get your journal out and start writing and see if you can work out when your power time is. I think everybody has one, and some people have loads of energy, like James, for example. He doesn't really have a power time. Sometimes he can work into the night, and sometimes he likes to be working early on in the day, and sometimes he can literally work start to finish all day long. I've known him when he's got a project or a website to do, he really gets deep into that project, and it's almost like I don't see him for a month while he's doing that project, if you like, and then he comes out of it and he's back. Yeah, so we're both completely different with our energy levels and our power times and things like that. It's taken me a good few years to work out my power time, but now I have. It's helped me out so much. And the other thing about my power time for me is I have mentioned many times that I am a creature of routine. So I think this comes into this point as well, to work out whether you need a schedule, whether you like to work with the flow and just not have a plan and be really chilled about your timings of when you create and when you don't, or whether you're like me and you like routines and rituals and everything pretty much the same every single day. So I know that my creativity slot is first thing in the morning, and that really works for me. So let me know in the comments as well what works for you. I love that aspect of the YouTube, that we can all share each other's ideas and get tips from each other, because I know there's loads and loads of things that we could add to this list. So my next tip is try something new. So if you've been painting the same old thing, so for example, I've been painting a portrait with flowers and some hands. So I changed it up by simplifying it and just going for a single flower or a group of flowers. So obviously today I've done a few lilies. So that's helped me move forwards within my portrait with a flower project, because I'm looking at flowers and how I want to represent flowers on my canvases. So that will feed in, but it takes away the pressure of doing those portraits. And the little portrait behind me, just up there, I haven't touched that for a few weeks because I wanted it to percolate. So I've given myself permission to have that percolating and have these flowers going on, my flower power project. I've also changed things up in the sense I've got some little canvas squares going, I've got some watercolours, I've got my new art book, my art journal going, I've got a larger canvas going, I've got some portraits, I've got some with single flowers. There's more chance, if you like, of something tantalising me when I come into the studio, rather than just have this one thing that I'm working on, which is what I did with that one. And I got really fed up of it. And I thought, the thing I'm doing wrong here is I haven't got multiple projects on the go, and I'm not changing things up for me and doing something that I wouldn't normally do. So that helps us stay loose, and it helps with the block, and it helps progress us as artists as well. So I definitely recommend trying something different, trying something you've never done before, trying something that scares you, trying something that you think everyone else will think is stupid. You don't have to show anybody. You don't have to share it on social media. You don't have to tell anybody. Just have a go. And it comes down to giving yourself this permission, doesn't it? So sometimes I write myself a little permission slip out and I stick it in the front of my journal, or I stick it on my wall in my studio and things like that. So talking of sticking things on my wall in my studio, that brings me to my next tip, which is inspiration. Have some inspiration time. And I've mentioned this in art journaling videos in the past. I think my guide to art journaling, I've definitely mentioned it in that one, where I give myself some time, chunks of time to get inspired. And that's kind of what I did yesterday afternoon. James sort of had a suggestion yesterday because I didn't have any art supplies at home and I didn't have any editing to do. So he said to me, why don't you have an art date? And that's kind of what I did. I looked around the internet at people and artists and artwork that inspires me, older, more traditional artists to contemporary artists. And I had a real look around, and I also watched some YouTube videos yesterday. So not painters, but people who were creators, and then maybe they were writers or musicians. One of the ladies played the harp, there was a writer, and it very much brought me back to the quote that I shared last week, which I think I got the quote slightly wrong, even though the meaning of it was right. Inspiration exists, but it has to find you working, Picasso. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably paint that on my wall behind me to remind me of that. Because it's important to get inspired by other creators. And now and again, you know, do some educational studies of an artist that really interests you. It's amazing what you can learn by copying a famous artist. And obviously, you know, I can't sell that painting, that one there, because it's a copy of a Paul Bethon painting. I've done it as an educational study. I did it as a project for the Patreon, and it was a really, really lovely project to do, and I learned loads from doing it, and it's still feeding into my work now, which has taken me in a slightly different direction and helping me grow. So I love that. So don't be put off from copying someone. And if you're going to share that process on social media, that's absolutely fine. I shared the progress shots of that painting, but I credited the artist, and I think that we must remember to do that. We don't want anybody copywriting or complaining or anything like that against us. So yeah, it's a creator's honour code, isn't it? And I know people copy each other and it's not honourable, and that goes on, I know that. But a lot of the time copying can be really, really good for us, and it can be a real gift to our creativity and our growth. So as well as quotes and looking at other artists and other creators, another thing I do, one of the really big things I do to get inspired and also recharge my batteries as well, is to get out in nature. And sometimes that means taking bits of video and taking photographs and bringing them back to the studio. I took loads of pictures of a magnolia tree about a month ago now and used those pictures in the studio as well. And I often use photographs that James has taken because he's got a really nice camera. He's a really good photographer as well. So he doesn't mind if I use his photographs. And if I really need some source material, I can always dip into some copyright-free websites, things like Pixabay and things like that. Some of the pictures you pay for a little bit, and then some of them are free, so you can dip into those. But there's loads of other ways to get inspired, isn't there? You could go to a market and buy yourself some lovely flowers or a new plant and bring that back to the studio. You could listen to some lovely music to get you in the mood. Podcasts are really inspiring, aren't they? There's loads and loads of things that are really, really inspiring. Which leads me on to it might be my last point, but I'm not going to promise because I might think of a few more things and then pop them later on in the video. But the final thing I've got for today is all about our environment. So if you're feeling blocked creatively, I think it absolutely helps to change your space, tidy up, reorganize, move things around, shift things around, maybe play with the feng shui. I've got a video about when I feng shuied the studio, and that's really helped me out. And if you watch that video, you might remember that this area here for my wet area turned out to be my career and life purpose, which is perfect for my painting area, isn't it? So I loved doing that, and it's really helped me out. And I've put a couple of remedies in as well, which I'll share with you when I do a studio tour in a few weeks. But this definitely helps change the mood. And I'm in a place now where I really need to just sort out my space. And I was having a look this morning. I haven't done any tidying up today yet because I wanted to use my morning energy for my creativity. But what I thought I'd do is rejig this whole painting area. And instead of having this area behind me here, which I'm using at the moment for storing canvases and a few other bits and bobs, so basically it's more a storage area than a work area. And I want to move all that stuff to that end of the bench, and then this end of the bench move to here. So this whole part becomes my painting area, and then that's my storage over there, because I don't work there because that's right next to the door and I don't feel comfortable there. I like this corner. So I'm going to sort that out, I think, over the next day or two. I might do a little bit today and I might do a little bit tomorrow. I'm not sure. So that's my tips for now, and as I say, I might add to those later on in the video, but those things have really been helping me push through my creative block. And it is a little bit of a push, and sometimes it feels a little bit uphill, and sometimes I have little downhill moments. But at least I know that I'm moving forwards and that my artwork is progressing, and I'm learning new things every time, even when the artwork is a complete disaster and I don't even like it. So please do leave any tips and techniques that you have in the comments below, and then we can share ideas and things like that. And then we can all get to a place where we've pushed through on our artist block and we're creating some really bad art, and now and again a masterpiece that we're truly thrilled with. And as my daughter would say, we totes got this, because we have. And on top of everything else in this crazy weird world that we're currently living in, some of us, I know it's a bit weirder than others because there are places that are not in lockdown and there are places that are still in lockdown. But wherever you are in the world and whatever level of crazy that it is, creativity helps heal the soul. It soothes the soul and it heals us. It processes things and it does all kinds of magic to our mental health and well-being that I can't even put in this video because it would go on. And I have mentioned this in loads of my other videos, so I'm not going to go into all that today, but you know what I mean. It really does have that magic effect on us because we are creative beings and we're meant to create and be creative every day if possible. It's definitely helped lessen my anxiety with the whole situation in the world right from the word go. And I'm really grateful to have my artwork. And so whether you are a pianist or a singer or a poet or an artist or a painter or a writer, it doesn't really matter. We all have an area of creativity that draws us in. And I think most of us have multiple areas of creativity that draw us in. So let's keep going. We can do it. We totes got this. So I don't think I have any other tips to add, maybe apart from one final one that I thought of this morning, which is just a really quick little tip, is to work fast. So when you want to stay loose, use big brushes and work fast, and then have everything set up to allow you to work fast, so your palette nearby and things like that. And that often helps me stay loose and creative. And you have to make really quick decisions when you're working fast, so it forces you to be expressive and you don't have a choice in the matter because you've got to keep your brush moving. So that's another little final tip that I'll leave you with. So if you enjoyed the video, don't forget you can subscribe to my channel and you can check out my Instagram, which I update regularly, particularly the stories. And I wish you loads of success pushing through any creative blocks that you experience this week. Try to keep your lights as bright as you can, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. Oh, the good times just begun. We know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future